Hello everyone, this is Matthew Johnson, Assistant Principal, Whitman Middle School. I want to welcome you to Walt Whitman Middle School. We are excited to have you join our Whitman family. I will be spending a little bit of time narrating a quick drive-through of our school community just so that you can kind of get a better sense of our students and our local community and where our students reside. This is something we started doing a few years ago as a part of our Welcome Week. However, as you are well aware, given the current situation, we are not able to do so. But we still wanted to keep this as a part of our Welcome Week. So I hope you enjoy and look forward to sharing some experiences with you. So let's go ahead and get started. We're starting at Whitman Middle School. On the left-hand side, you'll see our Mount Vernon Police Department, our Mount Vernon Station, as well as our local fire department. If we're going to talk about Gum Springs, it's important to highlight West Ford. West Ford was a freedman that was granted his freedom at 21 years old. He is rumored to have been a descendant of the Washington family. The Ford family claimed that he was George Washington's son and have requested ancestral testing. The Washington family proclaimed that he may have actually been a nephew instead. What we do know is that West Ford was left over 100 acres of land, which he then sold to buy more land and help establish Gum Springs. He was considered the second wealthiest black man in all of Fairfax County. The street going through Gum Springs, Fordson Road, is named after West Ford, as well as the various housing units here in Gum Springs. Our first stop is Bethlehem Baptist Church, a pillar in the Gum Springs and African American community here in our local area. Bethlehem Baptist Church was founded by Reverend Samuel Taylor in 1863. Reverend Taylor was a runaway slave who fled to Gum Springs, preached the gospel in different homes, and then in 1865, the first Bethlehem Baptist Church was erected, and then in 1884, the second building was erected. That building has been maintained, and as you can see right now, and on the left-hand side is the new church. Bethlehem Baptist Church continues to be, like I mentioned earlier, a pillar in the community, in the Gum Springs and African American community, and you tend to find a lot of community outreach and programming taking place. So now we're going to drive the entire stretch of Route 1 here in our local community. I do apologize in advance. I am speeding it up a little bit. I do apologize. Hope it doesn't give anybody vertigo. I promise you I was doing the speed limit the entire time. So a little bit beyond the traffic light is Fort Belvoir, which is in our boundaries as well. Other than that, this is the extent of our Whitman Middle School boundaries. At the top right corner, you can't really see it because of the trees, is Woodlawn Plantation. It was built for George Washington's nephew and his wife in 1800, then sold to the Quakers in 1846, who turned it into a free labor colony, selling lots to freed slaves and freemen, which was obviously something very controversial at the time. The Quaker community has a lot of strong history here in the Richmond Highway corridor and the history of the Richmond Highway community, more specifically in Woodlawn. So the first community that you'll see is the Gristmill Homes community. One thing that you'll notice as we go throughout the Whitman Middle School boundaries is that the eastern side of Richmond Highway tends to have more single family homes, and then the western side tend to have more apartments and such. On the other side of those trees, we have the Mount Vernon Country Club, which is an 18-hole championship golf course. I also know that we have different events there that the region leadership team tends to have towards like their end of the year banquet and such. We'll continue to travel around the eastern side of Richmond Highway and throughout the community. As a former history major, you just can't help but love having Mount Vernon Estate right here in our backyard. As you see on the right-hand side, this is George Washington's Mount Vernon Estate. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of the land that we have seen so far on this tour belonged to George Washington. On the right-hand side, what we're coming up on is Mount Vernon High School. Interestingly enough, that building was originally opened as our Whitman Middle School, at the time Whitman Intermediate School, in September of 1961. However, in 1973, Whitman Middle School and what was Mount Vernon High School switched buildings. The original Mount Vernon High School on Route 1, they traded places because it was this land, which is currently Mount Vernon High School, was believed to lend itself more to future growth. That concludes our tour of the eastern side of Richmond Highway. We're now going to move over to the other side of Route 1, where the vast majority of our students currently reside. We'll start off with Buckman Road, where I'm proud to say I was born and raised. Interestingly enough, Buckman Road is just one street. However, given our boundaries, it sends students to 4 different elementary schools, one that's not in our pyramid. Our first stop, Buckman Road Apartments, is a very diverse community. It has one of the largest West African communities in all of Northern Virginia. It also has a robust community center where many of our students benefit from tutoring and perform various community service projects. As we drive through Rolling Hills Apartments, you can see Sequoia straight ahead. The two communities go to two different elementary schools. Sequoia is a very large neighborhood with many homes and families. We have so many students that reside in Sequoia that we often have two buses solely for this one neighborhood and often rely on an overflow bus. It's a really large neighborhood, and what I'm about to show you is probably only about a third of Sequoia. I'm proud to say that this is my first home, as we lived here when I was a kid before moving to another neighborhood on Buckman Road. The next community that you're going to see, Mount Vernon Apartments, is right across the street from Sequoia. Many of our students reside here and come to us from Riverside Elementary School, and the neighborhood has historically been very diverse. Across from Mount Vernon Apartments is a hypothermia shelter which made national news in February of 2017 when an ICE raid took place as the homeless individuals left for the morning. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe expressed his concerns to the national media and also penned a letter to the Department of Homeland Security. You'll notice the construction on the right-hand side. These are $730,000 townhomes that are being built here on the ever-changing Buckman Road. The last three communities on Buckman Road are Mount Vernon Lakes, Pembroke, which is not pictured, and Pinewood South. These three communities represent a large percentage of our students that come to us from Riverside Elementary School. Fun fact, Pimas is a restaurant that has been around for many years now. The owners are Mount Vernon High School graduates. Woodlawn Gardens is another community where many of our students live. We have a bus here at Whitman Middle School that is designated solely to this one neighborhood. Students living here attend Woodley Hills Elementary School. Woodlawn Elementary School is one of the oldest elementary schools in Fairfax County. It has roots back to the Quaker community that was very prevalent in the 1800s. The first Woodlawn school dates back to the late 1800s, but the current building was constructed in 1937. It's since gone through many changes, but the oldest portion of Woodlawn Elementary School, was seen here in this picture, was preserved. As schools were segregated until 1965, this Woodlawn Elementary School was only for white children. There was another school called the Woodlawn School, which was for African American children. However, not much is known about it since that large African American Woodlawn community was displaced with the expansion of Fort Belvoir in 1940. One of the last communities we'll see is Sacramento. This is another one of the larger communities we have at Whitman Middle School. Again, we have two buses that bring students home to Sacramento. The students in this community attend Washington Mill Elementary School. So with the exception of Fort Belvoir, that brings us to the southern end of our boundaries here at Walt Whitman Middle School. We're going to start heading back on Route 1 North. Before doing so, I want to highlight Washington Square Apartments, where many of our students live. As I was driving through, I couldn't help but notice all of the Mount Vernon High School Class of 2020 yard signs. I'm sure they were once our students before. Go Majors! This next community, sadly, is slated to be removed with the upcoming revitalization plans for Richmond Highway. In its place, there will be a water storage system. The students that reside here, as well as Washington Square Apartments, come to us from Woodley Hills Elementary School. This is the original Mount Vernon High School. It opened in 1940 and is the second oldest high school in Fairfax County. Fairfax High School is the oldest, however, the original Fairfax High School is currently occupied by Paul VI Catholic High School. As mentioned earlier, this building also served as Whitman Middle School until the 1980s. As a kid, we would play our home basketball games here, and they still had the giant W at half court. There are currently various proposals on the table to determine the building's usage moving forward. Lastly, I wanted to show one final community, Harmony Place. The students that live here come to us from Riverside Elementary School. There were concerns that this community would also be displaced with the revitalization plans. However, local elected officials assured that it would not. Final stretch, I want to thank you again for joining us on this tour. We hope it was helpful and showed just how great our community is here at Whitman Middle School. Welcome again to the Whitman family, where we have the best staff and amazing students and families.